Okay, kiddos, let's continue with the digestive system. And now we'll talk, there are some accessory organs, of course, and we'll go into more detail, but the liver, the pancreas, and the gallbladder are considered accessory digestive organs, but their roles in the digestive system are extremely vital. Let's continue with the pharynx and esophagus. You've got the oropharynx and the laryngopharynx that pass the food. The walls contain skeletal muscle, and those are the deep longitudinal layer and the superficial circular layer. The esophagus is posterior to the trachea, starts behind the larynx, it passes through the esophageal hiatus of the diaphragm, so it actually cuts right through the diaphragm, ends at the lower esophageal sphincter located at the cardiac orifice. And you have this cardiac sphincter, and that's why people get heartburn, right? So because it's right near the heart. So heartburn is definitely GI issue and not heart related. A lot of young students end up in the ER because they think that they're having a heart attack, but it's usually some kind of heartburn. But when in doubt, always go to the ER and get it checked out, because you can't assume that it's heartburn. You want to always think the worst, and if it is truly your chest, then again, remember, heart attack, it would be like an elephant is sitting on your chest and it's extreme pain. Okay, if you ate something spicy and all of a sudden you get heartburn, well, then it makes sense. So make sure it makes sense. Deglutition is the definition of swallowing, coordinated by swallowing center of the medulla. So if you look at the stomach as a whole, you have a lesser curvature here, you have a greater curvature here, you have the cardiac part or the cardiac sphincter here, you have the fundus, which is this right section here, here's the entire body, here's the pyloric part, you have the pyloric canal, which is right in here, and then you have the pyloric sphincter that allows a little bit of food to go into the small intestine at intervals. Now again, when you drink on an empty stomach, this pyloric sphincter is usually open, so your stomach could definitely absorb the alcohol right away, but then it'll also pass into the small intestine where you can get a buzz pretty quickly. Now if you eat a heavy food, like let's say mostly fat and protein, then what will happen is this pyloric sphincter is closed, so you will still absorb alcohol through the stomach lining a little bit, but it won't get really absorbed through the small intestine, so your buzz is a little bit longer to kick in, right? So you're like, okay, Patel, now I got the stomach. All you had to do was relate it to alcohol. I understand everything. But you do have these strong longitudinal, circular, and oblique muscles that will like pound the food in here with this rugae and basically pulverize it and make the bolus into chyme. All right. So again, I think I mentioned this in class, but if you're going to take a nap after eating, which you shouldn't do, try to take it on the left side so that the food kind of stays in this little greater curvature. If you sleep on your right side, then it can kind of come up and go towards the cardiac sphincter and give you a little bit of heartburn. Okay, there's another picture of the stomach there. Now, the histology of the stomach wall is adapted for functions of the stomach. In the epithelium, you have gastric pits that lead to gastric glands that secrete the gastric juice. The gastric glands contain different types of cells that secrete a variety of enzymes, including hydrochloric acid, which activates the protein digesting enzyme pepsin. And remember, the hydrochloric acid pH is around 2 to 3, and it can pretty much burn a hole in your stomach, but the mucosal lining will help protect it. But if you take a lot of anti-inflammatories, then what will happen is that it will thin out that mucosal lining and you can get an ulcer. Okay, so here's the small intestine, and again, here's the duodenum, here's the jejunum, and then here's the ileum. And then the ileum will connect with the cecum, so you have the ileocecal valve here. Okay. And then as far as the large intestine is concerned, you go from the cecum to the ascending colon, transverse colon, descending colon, sigmoid colon, and then the rectum. And we'll definitely go in more detail with all these, but I just tried to show you over and over again. So repetition is the key, so your brain sees it from different angles at different times. All right, so the stomach itself, the microscopic anatomy, again, you have mucosal cells, mucus, regenerative stem cells that make new cells, parietal cells, HCl, intrinsic factor, ghrelin, chief cells, pepsinogen, gastric lipase, and then you have the enteroendocrine cells that make hormones. So you have a lot of things going on in the gastric pits of the stomach. So here's all the major secretions of the gastric glands. Again, you have the mucous neck cells that make mucus, parietal cells that make hydrochloric acid, chief cells that do pepsinogen, gastric lipase that digests fat, chief cell pepsinogen that helps digest protein, enteroendocrine, gastrin, secrete hydrochloric acid, serotonin stimulates gastric motility, histamine stimulates hydrochloric secretion. Now, do you have to know all these? No, this is more physiology, but just know the anatomy, basic anatomy of the stomach would be definitely a good thing. The average human being has over 400 different species of bacteria, so that's why you should probably take probiotics as well, so that you want good bacteria in your gut. It takes approximately 7 seconds for food to travel from the esophagus and reach the stomach. An adult female's small intestine is longer than the average adult male's. Again, the stomach has a nice mucosal coat, which is thick, highly alkaline, prevents being destroyed by the acid. The epithelial cells are frequently replaced, and they live only about 3 to 6 days. Now the small intestine, so again, going from the stomach to the small intestine, the first part is called the duodenum, which is 10 inches. Circular folds called plicae circularis, receives and mixes the stomach contents, pancreatic juice, and bile. It basically is chyme there, but it will continue to pulverize the chyme and make it this little slush or slurry. The major duodenal papilla for bile and pancreatic ducts. You have minor duodenal papilla for accessory, and the duodenal jejunal flexure. The next part is the jejunum, which is 1 to 1.7 meters. So 1 meter is 3 feet. Okay, so 1.7 is quite a bit. Okay, mostly within the umbilical region. Most digestion and absorption occur here. Great quiz question. And you have prominent circular folds and a nice red color. The ileum is about 1.6 to 2.7 meters, so that's the largest section of the small intestine. You have sparse folks, nice pink color, aggravated lymphoid, so you have pyre patches to help break down bacteria. Okay, so the pyre patches that are found in the ileum are help to break down the bacteria. Ileocecal function, you have that right in here, and that's will start all the nutrients that have been absorbed, and then all the dead cells and the waste products will end up in the cecum here, and basically it's fecal matter by then. You have these villi in the small intestine, and these villi are these enterocytes, absorptive cells, have little tiny microvilli projections. You have goblet cells, and then you have these lacteals, which are lymphatics for lipid absorption, so fat absorption right in here. Okay, so you see that on the small intestine model. You'll see these lacteal. You have intestinal crypts, goblet and absorptive cells, which are right in here. The crypts of Lieberkens. They secrete a lysozyme right in here. And then you have duodenal mucosa that have an alkaline mucus to help protect the coating here. Digestion of protein. So people say we need protein. So let's say digestion of protein begins in the stomach. So protein digestion begins in the stomach by hydrochloric acid and the enzyme pepsin. If you eat a protein-based meal, a high protein-based meal, it takes a while for your body to break it down. Unlike carbs, which will break it down pretty quickly, but so you get quick energy, but then you get hungry again. Whereas the protein, it takes longer for your stomach and your GI system to break down, so you're going to stay fuller longer, so essentially you'll eat less. And that's one theory of why a protein-based diet is good for you, because you stay fuller longer. Then the liver is going to regulate distribution of amino acids to the body, right? The pancreas has protein digesting enzymes are secreted from the pancreas into the small intestine. The small intestine is the major site of protein digestion. Final digestion occurs here. A small amount of dietary protein could be lost in the feces, okay? But absorbed amino acids enter the blood and travel to the liver. Digestive secretions and absorption of water. Basically, you should drink food and drink about 2,000 mLs. Then you have saliva, which is 1,500 mLs. Okay. Gastric secretions, another 1,500 mLs. Liver has another 1,000 mLs. Pancreatic juice, another 1,000 mLs. By that time, you get about 9,000 mLs in your small intestine. The small intestine reabsorbs about 7,800 mLs, okay? And then so you have about 1,200 mLs left, and then the colon will reabsorb another 1,250 mLs. So really you're only losing about 150 mLs of water in your feces. Now if you're super dehydrated, right, if you don't drink enough water, well, your body has to get the water somewhere, so it's going to extract as much water as it can, and if there's a deficit, then it's going to extract it from the fecal matter, and what's going to happen is you're going to be constipated. It's going to be hard. That's why water is important. Okay. Now, digestion and absorption, again, this is a great little way to understand. Mechanical digestion includes chewing and swallowing. Chemical digestion of carbs and fats starts to occur in the mouth. You still get mechanical digestion, includes peristaltic mixing and propulsion in the stomach. Then you get chemical digestion of proteins and fats. You can get absorption of fat, but alcohol and aspirin are readily absorbed in the stomach, okay, depending on how full it is. That's why you shouldn't take aspirin on an empty stomach. You shouldn't drink alcohol on an empty stomach. Here's the liver and the gallbladder. They're in the small intestine, you're going to get mechanical digestion, includes mixing and propulsion, okay, segmentation, chemical digestion of carbs, fats, polypeptides, and nucleic acids. You're going to absorb, all nutrient absorption takes place in the small intestine, so fructose, fats, water, minerals, and vitamins. And then mechanical digestion includes segmental fixing and propulsion. There's no real chemical digestion that occurs in the large intestine. And then you get absorption of ions, water, minerals, vitamins, and organic molecules in the large intestine. So mostly water. So once it reaches the large intestine, you got the cecum pouch. The appendix is a blind tube. Some of you have your appendix removed. The colon, you go with the ascending colon on the right side, the right colic flexure. You have the transverse colon, descending colon on the left side, and then the sigmoid S-shaped. So your little poop should look something like a little S-shaped because that's the last shape of your large intestine. The rectum has transverse rectal folds to retain the feces until you can find the toilets to go. Your anal canal is about 3 centimeters long. You have anal columns and folds. You have anal sinuses, which are depressions between the folds. You have internal smooth muscle and external skeletal muscle and anal sphincters that you can control. Unfortunately, as you get older, that control goes away. Along the large intestine, you have what we call the tinea coli, which is the muscle that goes around there. That's that white strip that you see on some of the models. And then the pouches of large intestine are called haustra. And so if you look at this large intestine, again, here's the cecum, here's the ileocecal valve, here's the appendix. Okay, that can be removed. Again, this was back in the days when you used to eat twigs and branches. That's what it helped digest, but we don't eat that anymore. Here's the ascending colon. These are little pouches called haustra. The muscular component is called the tinea coli. This is the transverse colon. This is the descending colon. Here's your sigmoid colon. Here's your rectum, anal canal. And here's your external anal sphincter. Here's the columns. If you strain too much, you can get hemorrhoids on the outside. Here's your anus. Okay. Here's the anal canal, and then the rectum right here. Okay. And here's your hemorrhoidal veins that can swell right in there. Once poop or fecal matter reaches the internal anal sphincter, it sends a message to your brain that says, hey, you should go to the bathroom pretty quick. But then it's up to you when to release this external anal sphincter. All right, so the shades of poop. Again, brown, you're fine. Poop is naturally brown due to the bile produced by your liver. If it's black, it could mean that you're bleeding internally due to ulcer or cancer. Some vitamins contain iron or bismuth salicylate, could cause black poop. You shouldn't give aspirin to kids, or you shouldn't give Pepto-Bismol to kids because of salicylate, where kids can have a allergic reaction to it. Pay attention if it's sticky. We don't like black sticky poop. If it's green, maybe just ate spinach and cilantro, but it could also mean a bacterial infection such as C. diff. Food may be moving through your large intestine too quickly also, or you could have eaten lots of green leafy vegetables. If it's yellow, greasy, foul-smelling, poop indicates you have too much fat in your diet. Could also be due to malabsorption disorder like celiac disease. If it's light-colored white or clay-colored, if it's not what you're normally seeing, it could mean bile duct obstruction, or if you ate chalk, or severe dehydration. But some meds can cause this too. The worst one, we don't like red unless you've eaten beets, but blood stain or red blood in your poop could be a symptom of cancer, could be trauma to the area. Always see a doc right away if you find blood in your stool. What about the shades of poop or the shape of poop? What if it's hard lumps like little nuts? You're lacking some fiber and fluids. Drink more water. What if it's sausage shaped but lumpy? Not a serious separate hard lumps, but you need to load up on fluids and fiber. If it's sausage shaped but with cracks, still need to load up on water. So you can see all these little cracks and need water. You want a nice sausage shaped, the shape of a banana would be perfect, optimal poop, and brown, and you're fine. What about if you have soft blobs with clear-cut edges? Not too bad, pretty normal. What about fluffy pieces with ragged edges, a mushy stool? You're on the edge of normal, but it's almost diarrhea. If it's watery, no solid pieces, you got diarrhea. So your body's trying to get rid of the bacterial infection in there. And what if you have soft and sticky to the toilet bowl? Well, you're eating too much fat and oil. Okay. All right. The epithelium is mostly simple columnar in the large intestine. Exception is the anal canal, which has stratified squamous because it needs to resist abrasion. Has intestinal crypts but no villi, like the small intestine. It has abundant lymphatic tissues to help fight off all the bacteria. Mucosa specialized for fluid and electrolyte absorption. The liver is the body's largest gland. Digestive function is bile production. The bilirubin is decomposition of hemoglobin. Urobilinogen metabolized bilirubin that makes the feces brown. And then you have bile acids such as lecithin, which will help emulsify or break down fat. So the liver plays a key role in the digestive system. If these are not fully developed and in children, they'll give them the UV light to help stimulate the liver to start producing bilirubin. Okay, so that's jaundice. All right, the liver, gross anatomy, you have lobes. Right is the largest. You have a left and the quadrate and caudate. You have a falciform ligament, which basically separates the right lobe from the left lobe. You have the porta hepatis, this is the area between the quadrate and caudate lobes. And you have a round ligament, which is remnants of the umbilical vein when you were a little fetus. Okay. Now the gallbladder is embedded within the liver. Remember, the liver is on your right side. So if you look at this, the porta hepatis is the hepatic portal vein, the hepatic portal artery, and the bile duct. That's the triad that they call. All right, the liver has over 500 different functions, one of which is producing bile to break down digestive fats. The stomach of an adult holds up to 1.5 liters of food and stays there for 2 to 3 hours. Although the large intestine is up to 4 inches in diameter, the small intestine is only 1 inch in diameter. And the approximate surface area of the small intestine is 2,700 feet, half the size of a basketball court or the length of a badminton court. All right, the microscopic anatomy, you have the hepatic lobules, small cylinders with central vein radiating plates of hepatocytes. You have hepatic sinusoids, which are like little leaky capillaries. You have stellate macrophages, which help clean the blood. And then you have bile caniculi, which are bile ductals. So if you look at the histology of this, okay, you have microscopic anatomy of the liver, and here's the hepatic sinusoid. Okay, so remember, when you see the word sinusoid, that's found in the liver. here is the hepatic artery, here's the bile duct, and here's the hepatic portal vein. This is the triad that's very common. So if you see something like this, here's the central vein, okay, which is right here. This is histology of the liver, and this very similar histology will be on the practicum for sure. Okay. Liver circulation, you have the hepatic portal vein, which brings nutrient-rich blood from veins of the GI tract to the liver. You have the hepatic artery, which brings arterial blood from the aorta, celiac trunk, goes to the common hepatic artery proper, and then the hepatic artery. You have hepatic veins that exit from top of the liver and empty into the inferior vena cava. So that's pretty much your liver circulation. So we have the arterial blood coming in from the aorta, celiac trunk, common hepatic artery proper, and then the hepatic artery. And then the hepatic portal vein will bring nutrient-rich blood from veins of the GI tract to the liver. The gallbladder sac on the underside of the liver, it stores and concentrates bile, and bile is there to help break down fat. So those that have were really overweight and then they lose a lot of weight all of a sudden, the bile may still be being produced, and they may have an overactive gallbladder, and they might get gallstones. Bile passage, it has two hepatic ducts that merge to form the common hepatic duct. Then the common hepatic duct merges with the cystic duct to form the bile duct. And the bile duct merges with the main pancreatic duct to form the hepatopancreatic ampulla at the major duodenum. So these are all secreting. This is how the liver, the gallbladder, and the pancreatic all kind of mesh together to secrete juices into the small intestine and help break down the food. So here's a great little picture that shows, okay, here's the gallbladder. Oh, here's the hepatic ducts coming in from the liver. That's the common hepatic duct. Then you get the cystic duct, and they all kind of come in together to form the bile duct, and then you get a common bile duct right in here. Okay. Then you also have this guy, which is the hepatopancreatic ampulla, and then again they all kind of form together, mesh together, and they will secrete their juices into the small intestine right here to help break down the food. The pancreas is retroperitoneal, posterior to the stomach. The head is near the duodenum. The tail is near the spleen. Good thing to know from an anatomy class. The endocrine islets secrete insulin and glucagon. So from a diabetes standpoint, the pancreas is involved in diabetes control. Mostly endocrine tissue secreting pancreatic juice, enzymes, zymogens, sodium bicarbonate, water, and electrolytes. The branching ducts, you have the pancreatic duct, and then you have the accessory pancreatic duct that opens at the minor duodenal papillae, and you have acinar cells in the pancreas. The acinar cells are which secrete the digestive enzymes, and then you have the pancreatic islet cells that secrete hormones. So the pancreas has a head, a body, and a tail. It delivers pancreatic juice to the duodenum through the pancreatic duct. Microscopic anatomy of the pancreas. You have acinar cells. Okay, so this would be a good visual representation right here. How's the development of the digestive system? At 2 weeks, 3 weeks, your liver begins to form as a bud. At 4 weeks, the mouth forms, the pancreas forms. At 5 weeks, the stomach starts to form, and 7 weeks, your anus forms. Okay, so the first 6 to 8 weeks of trimester is very, very important, or the first trimester. And there you are, a little parasite. And as you get older, unfortunately, the aging digestive system, less saliva, swallowing becomes more difficult, your teeth have more decay, you have acid deficiency, reduces absorption of calcium, zinc, folic acid, and iron, you have a weakening of the muscle, and you get heartburn and constipation. Ooh, all sorts of fun things to look forward to as we get older. And these are some more digestive diseases that you can get. You can get acute pancreatitis, severe pancreatic inflammation, perhaps caused by trauma. You can get appendicitis, inflammation of the appendix. You can get ascites, which is accumulation of serous fluid in the peritoneal cavity, causes extreme distension of the abdomen, very dangerous, often caused by cirrhosis of the liver though. What about Crohn's disease? Inflammation of small and large intestines, dysphagia, difficulty swallowing. You can get a hiatal hernia, protrusion, or part of the stomach into the thoracic cavity. You can get ulcerative colitis, which is chronic inflammation resulting in ulceration of the large intestine. And yeah, that was, and then you could also have the other ones, dental caries, which are cavities, diarrhea, gallstones, constipation, gingivitis, hemorrhoids, megacolon, mumps, peptic ulcer, periodontal disease, which is all, all bad stuff. So you'll see all that related to the GI system. All right.